Welcome to the Cannabis Health News Magazine show. We're here with Christie Lunsford from Dixie's. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jason.
So apparently, there are so many different ways to use medical cannabis. All of us are familiar with smoking and vaporizing and edibles and so on and so forth. But there are a lot of uses, such as topical use, suppositories, tinctures, so on and so forth, that a lot of people aren't aware of. So thank you for joining us today to help inform our audience and myself about the benefits of topicals and the scientific research and where that all stands, or where it doesn't stand, and how we fit in and what our responsibility is. So please, Christie, share with us what topicals with cannabis do or can do for us.
Well, there are several different types of cannabis consumable products that Dixie Elixers and Edibles manufactures here in the state of Colorado. Primarily, Dixie Botanicals has a full bouquet of products, if you will. There is the Dixie Pain Relief Salve, the Dixie Botanical Massage Oil, a product called Snake Oil, which we'll go into as well as the Therapeutic bath salts. The Dixie Botanical line came about in working with a clinical herbalist by the name of Deanna Gabriel.
I know Deanna. She's a wonderful woman and has a great aura around her as well.
Absolutely. Deanna and I started working on the topical project about a year and a half ago, and proved proof of concept in about 7 months, and we're able to take that proof of concept to Dixie and get our products out statewide, and eventually be moving that product line into other states such as California, Oregon, Arizona, and as other states become medical marijuana states, you'll be able to find Dixie Elixirs and Dixie Botanical products there as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. It's exciting to see how quickly you guys have really come together and created some really good products.
Absolutely. And there's a great synergy between the products and how they perform for patients. In the cannabis consumable market, there are a variety of different therapies other than smoke therapy. So there's edible therapy, which would be a food item infused with medical marijuana that's ingested, and the marijuana is broken down in the liver and dispersed. There are tincture therapies, which are the preparation of medical marijuana in a alcohol or a glycerin compound that is orally ingested, and that's a cannabis consumable as well. But today we'll be talking specifically about a cannabis consumable that is a topical therapy. Topical therapies, unfortunately, there is not a lot of research on. We have a very basic understanding of how they work with the peripheral nervous system of the body. And anything that you apply to the skin, whether it be a salve, a cream, a lotion, an oil, or a spray, or taking a bath salt therapeutic bath, with the use of cannabis, it's a beautiful way to manage pain and to help chronic pain from having flare-ups. So I started out specifically with the salve. It's a very simple, elegant product with a base of natural beeswax and olive oil. And then we also use essential oils for their antifungal and as well their
they're antimicrobial and antifungal.
Antimicrobial,
right,
antifungal, and as well they help reduce pain and inflammation. So Jason, I know you've used the Dixie Botanical Salve. Why don't you share with us a little bit about what your experience was?
That's a really good question. Salves are relatively new to me, and I was kind of hesitant in the beginning to try a salve. I'm not a big lotion person, and I think that's really the main reason. But when I started to use this on my hands, on my back, my shoulders, upper back, lower back, on my knees, my ankles, I actually now use it as an aftershave, I found that I was able to move a little bit easier. I didn't have those local aches and pains in the joints and the muscles that I normally have, that I have trouble getting rid of with using cannabis in other ways, Or the big benefit is really that I can use topicals anywhere. And so if I'm having a flare up and I feel really awful, I can reach into my bag and grab the topical and go ahead and just rub it on my shoulder or on my back or wherever and get relief within only a few minutes. And that was the other thing that was really surprising to me. When I ingest cannabis, say with an edible, it can take 20 minutes or a half hour or so to take effect. If I use like a sublingual, it can take about 15 minutes. And with the topical, in terms of local relief, it was only just a few minutes.
Absolutely. And there are no psychotropic effects when you use cannabis topically as well. So we've had lots of great feedback and experiences with people who are secretaries or mechanics, and they have a flare-up of pain. They reach into their bag or toolbox and pull out the salve, apply it to the area of pain, and they're able to keep working without any pain, without any psychotropic effect, and they're productive, happy citizens.
There's a group of women that sit at the coffee shop I go to a couple days a week, and they knit for the morning. It's the knitting group, and I've gotten to know them over the last few months, and they are all military wives of ex-military. Thank you for their service. For the veterans, definitely. But what they have shown me is that they enjoy doing things with their hands. They like to talk. They like to make gloves and hats and all these things and give them to charities. And they go to the VA and give people gifts and to hospice care and so on and so forth. And what I noticed is that they were rubbing their hands a lot. Actually, a majority of the women were rubbing their hands and their joints when they were knitting, and they couldn't get a lot done. And over time, they learned who I was and how I was involved in the industry, and we got to talking about topicals. And they now are using topicals, and they didn't use cannabis before my conversation with them. They now use cannabis topical, and they do not have any psychotropic or head change, we'll call it, with the medication. And so it's encouraging to see the average person out there starting to recognize the benefits of topicals.
Absolutely. Salves are a great way, any topical really, but salves are a great way, for me at least, to engage an older audience and tell them about the beautiful mystery that is the cannabis plant. And it's how I told my mother and father what I do for a living. I took my mother out for lunch and slid a little jar of salve across the table to her, and her hands were in pain. She applied the product. I did tell her it had cannabis in it, and she wasn't very happy.
Did you tell her after or before?
Before.
And she wasn't happy, but she used it anyway.
She wasn't happy, but she used it anyway, and she wasn't happy during the meal. And 2 days later, she called me back, and she said, "Hey, do you have any more of that salve?"
Wow.
So it's really a powerful way to get the message across that this is just a plant. We don't need to be persecuted for using herbal medicines, and we can really take our health back and treat ourselves efficiently and easily with topical products. So why don't we delve a little bit into the differences between therapeutic massage oil, therapeutic pain relief salve. The massage oil is really the base for any kind of pain relief. And the interesting thing with these products is the age group. It's 21 to 91. I would say our patient base is. People use the massage oil, which is the strongest of the complement of topical products that Dixie Elixers and Edibles produces under the line Dixie Botanicals. It has a heavy content of cannabis in it, as well as essential oil blend. And our younger patients who are snowboarders, who are very athletic, who ski, who mountain bike and rock climb, they apply it before they go out and do those activities, as well as after they do those activities as well.
You bring up something very interesting right there, and I'll just kind of throw in a third little piece. Yeah. A lot of us who are very active, we snowboard, we ski, we run, we cycle, all those wonderful things. Not that I do all those right now, but if I were to have a little accident and bump my knee, or maybe I crash on my snowboard and land on my tailbone, excuse me, I see a benefit from carrying this cannabis salve with you, the oil with you, excuse me, and use it right then and there.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the beauty of these products, is they can be applied at any time, any place. The only caution I would have with it, if you have a skin abrasion where you've opened a wound,
good point.
That is a circumstance when you would want that to seal over before you used a salve or a massage oil.
Thank you for pointing that out.
But
that's a good one.
It's amazing. I use it before my yoga practice, and it's helped me get deeper into my poses, and I get so much more out of my classes. I'm not in pain during class, and I find that if I use it before class, I actually don't have to reapply later on. So for the 21 to 45 audience, it's all about health and maintaining wellness. And then for the elder population, it's really about dealing with daily chronic aches and pains, and that it can be used in the morning as soon as you get up. I have a friend who works in a factory, and he uses it every morning on his knees, and it allows him to go and make a living. And he can function very fine, and then at night he goes home and he has a bowl to help him get to sleep. So it's a perfect complement to edible therapies, tincture therapies, or smokable therapies.
So for those of you out there that don't know what a bowl is, it's a slang reference for a lot of us in the movement for a pipe with smokable cannabis in it.
Absolutely. So the difference between the massage oil and the salve is oil is great for taking to physical therapy appointments or applying at home. The salve is a hardened down version of the oil with beeswax. We strive to use organic, easily obtainable ingredients in the products. And the beautiful thing about a salve is you can pull it out of your bag and use it wherever, whenever. I'm amused that you use it as an aftershave product, because I actually use it on my face all the time.
As an aftershave? I don't think you shave.
I don't, but it's such, I have such thin skin.
Yeah, don't teasing. I think this is good for, I think this would be a great product for everybody's face, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And it makes such a nice emollient shield for when you're out in the cold Colorado air as well. So
interesting. So I understand that cannabis can also behave as a sunblock, and so you bring up another component where it acts as a windshield, and I would assume it's because of the oil components of the plant.
It is because of the oil components. It's also because the base that the cannabis oil is blended with, the beeswax, the olive oil, and then the cannabis oil itself provides an emollient shield. So I've had really good success and had anecdotal feedback from other people about that. And salve is just a great thing to always have in your bag. The other products that we have are a product called snake oil. And snake oil is a topical application of alcohol. You were saying how you don't really care for a salve, perhaps because of the greasier feel. This is like an after sports spray, and it absorbs into the skin. The alcohol is absorbed off, and there's no residue at all.
So the alcohol evaporates off, and then this absorbs in, and so you don't have that oily feel, essentially.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So it's a product that already existed within the Dixie frame before we came on, but it's been through a reformulation, and it's an amazing topical product, and one that I think men would perceive as less greasy, less emollient, and something they could use very successfully. The thing that I'm most excited about in topicals right now is the therapeutic bath salt. We worked...
You said therapeutic bath salts?
Therapeutic bath salts.
So real quick, and I know this is sort of a segment, but I think we need to address this, because there's been a lot of information in the news about bath salts are dangerous and people are using them for drugs. I understand that a lot of the body shop kind of places, therapy, whatever, approaches, the bath, soaps and that kind of stuff, that they use a lot of bath salts. I mean, I remember throwing Epsom salts or whatever into my bath. And
absolutely.
So is that the same thing?
I'm so glad that you asked that question, Jason, because therapeutic bath salts are salts that you physically soak in a bathtub. The bath salts that you're hearing in the news are a blend of maybe 5 chemicals or 500 chemicals that are being sold in places like 7-Eleven, and they're labeled bath salts, but they have nothing to do with bathing or the therapeutic, legal Colorado use of medical cannabis.
Thank you very much for clarifying that.
Absolutely. I was really disappointed about the bath salt name because therapeutic bath salts are such amazing products, and to have them slandered in this way really cuts deep into my heart. But these Dixie Botanical therapeutic bath salts, we spent over a year and a half formulating, and finally came down to an amazing product that's great for pain relief, rheumatoid arthritis. It helps with muscle soreness, swelling, stiff neck. I got an amazing feedback email from a friend of mine who's a mechanic who hurt his back moving some equipment around at work, and he said within 10 minutes of soaking in the Dixie Botanical Therapeutic Bath Salt that he had complete relief from his body pain that he had been experiencing, and had gotten the best night's sleep that week that he had received. That is wonderful. We also have some great anecdotal feedback from a medical marijuana patient in the state of Colorado who has gout. Gout, as you may be aware, is a very painful inflammation of acids that concentrates in the feet. So, Christie, if you don't mind, we're going to take a quick break, but I'd like to pick up on this story about the gout. Sure. Because this is an issue that affects a lot of people in our country. And so we're going to take a quick break and hear a message from our sponsors. We're going to come right back to Cannabis Health News Magazine. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome back to Cannabis Health News. We're here with Christie Lunsford from Dixie's Botanicals. We'd like to talk a little bit more about gout and rheumatoid arthritis. Retake. Welcome back to Cannabis Health News Magazine. We're here with Christie Lunsford from Dixie's Botanicals. We'd like to talk a little bit more about gout, rheumatoid arthritis, and a whole bunch of other things in terms of research. But first, Christie, what is your background? I know we've talked a lot about what cannabis topicals can do, but how come you're so familiar with this? Well, I've had a great deal of industry experience with skincare. I worked for Estee Lauder Incorporated for 12 years, and I've always been passionate about plants and plant medicine, growing my own foods, trying to understand how plants can be beneficial and improve our lives. When we had to do vertical integration last year to be compliant to the House bill that we're currently working under in the state of Colorado, I had my own MIP. And I was growing my own medicine, and I wanted to do a line of topical products. I'm more of what you'd call a folk herbalist, but I had met a woman named Deanna Gabriel, who is a clinical herbalist. And the difference between a folk herbalist and a clinical herbalist is I've done a lot of research and read and had gardens indoors and out and grown a variety of medicinal plants. But Deanna has gone to school, and she went to herbal school in Boulder and went through a clinical study and basically practices plant medicine much like a doctor would. So she went to the Naropa Institute, is that right? Or was it? It wasn't Naropa, it was the Boulder Herbal School of Medicine. Okay, that's over in Gun Barrel, if I remember right, yeah. I'm not familiar with where it is. I think it's over there. But yeah, in the Boulder area. Mm-hmm. So Deanna and I paired together, and we did the formulation and research and development on the topical line that's currently being produced at Dixie Elixers and Edibles as Dixie Botanicals. So there's a lot of passion that goes into the products, and I've been told that it certainly shows through in the quality and the medicinal benefit of the products. So let's jump back to something you mentioned. Okay. You said the difference between folk medicine, sure, if you will. I kind of want to tie that into one of the names of one of the products that you talked about earlier, the oil. You called it snake oil. So I find it kind of interesting that we are relating
some of these folk names to things that actually work. It's not snake oil as we've heard about it in the past that's just made up of stuff, right?
Exactly.
This is actually a snake oil that works.
It is, and it was the only topical product that Dixie Elixirs had before we came on board to put a quality topical line out there. Snake oil has a really negative connotation in early 1900 medicine making as a bunch of crap that was sold in a bottle that was a cure-all. And a lot of times it had cannabis in it. A lot of times it had derivations of the cocoa plant in it as well, and it was designed for euphoric effect it made your back pain go away because you were flying high.
And you said coca leaf, so cocaine essentially.
Cocaine, cocaine.
Okay.
I never get anything past you, Jason. When I try and skirt around something, you're like, no, I think that's cocaine. So yeah, cocoa leaf extract.
Right.
And snake oil there is nothing snake oilish about snake oil. It's wrapped in irony because it has no oil in it. It's an alcohol spray, and it's such a far cry from actual snake oil. It's one of the most effective, non-greasy applications of topical cannabis.
I look forward to trying
medicine.
that one. I really can't wait to try that one out.
We'll have to get you a bottle. Well, it's a nice little spray bottle.
I'll go into a center that distributes it and use my red card and do that legally, of course.
Absolutely.
So coming back to something that you brought up earlier, again, the bath salts. I find that, you mentioned gout.
Yeah.
I mentioned RA. And gout is something that affects our legs and feet. And the bath salt sounds like it could be something that could help that out. So tell me a little bit more about the bath salts, and if you have any stories about gout, it would be great to hear how this can actually tie in.
So during research and development, I met a gentleman who was assisting us with our packaging, and you can tell being in cannabis medicine and herbal medicine when someone's in a lot of pain. And I could see the pain in his eyes. I could feel the tension in his face and how he moved. And as our friendship developed, I said, what's wrong with you? And he said, I have gout, and I'm having a flare up, and it's incredibly painful. He did have his red card, and I was able at that point to sample him out some research and development bath salts. And the results in formulation were amazing. He used the Therapeutic bath salt as a foot bath and soaked his feet in it. And he said he could feel the cannabis medicine creeping up his legs, and that his gout flare-up was minimal to manageable. And if anyone's experienced gout, it's incredibly tenuous pain. And again, the sleep factor comes into effect. The people who use the Therapeutic bath salts have amazing sleep benefit, especially I'll wrap in insomniacs as well. But the gout moment is amazing because there are so few preparations, cannabis or not cannabis, that really seem to work for gout.
So something we touched on earlier with the knitting group was RA, rheumatoid arthritis. Right. Do you know how this affects RA, or what do you have to say about cannabis topicals in RA?
Sure. So rheumatoid arthritis strikes the young and the old, the firm and the infirm, and it's a debilitating, painful degeneration of mobility. Using a salve daily, even multiple times a day, because there is no psychotropic effect, allows you to manage and keep joint stimulation going and to not be in pain. It's a really it's a rocky road, because if you stop being able to manipulate your joints, the RA sets in, and then you've got more and more decreased mobility.
So it's like a domino effect.
Completely like a domino effect.
So what's interesting is it almost sounds like, and this is where, again, we need that research, and that's something I'd really like to hit on.
Sure.
But it sounds like that there's a potential that this topical for RA could potentially be standing those dominoes back up.
Absolutely, especially when you use complementary medicines together. So that would be application of a salve on joints that are experiencing tension and pain and RA-like symptoms, and then also utilizing something as a bath salt as a whole body wellness solution. So using complementary medicines, and also, why isn't there more research on cannabis topicals? Obviously, it's federally illegal, and there are a lot of different players in the national market and world market holding this style of medicine back. But what can we do to get more research studies on topical medicines?
That's a great question. What can we do? Because obviously, I'm a layperson, if you will, and I don't know how to. I mean, I do, but speaking as a general person, I don't know how to do research. I don't know who to speak to. I don't feel comfortable speaking to a lot of these people because I feel like maybe they won't talk to me, kind of like the doctor on the pedestal thing. But what can I do as a patient?
Well, I think that patients hold the most power. And you and I, Jason, have had this conversation about how powerful we are as individuals and how powerful we are as patients. I just got my recommendation renewed, and I spoke to my doctor about topical medicines. And I educated him on how these topical remedies work, and hopefully inspired him to go back and do some research so he can tell his patients. But as patients, we really need to go to our doctors and say, what are you doing as a doctor to get research done on cannabis medicines and cannabis topical medicines, because this really works, and it's really exciting medicine, and it's made a difference in my life.
A lot of people say, what can I do? And they feel like they're isolated. I think that's a really good example of what a patient can do in a direct conversation during their doctor visit, and just mentioning how cannabis benefits them, specifically the topicals. I think the more of us that come out and speak openly, whether it's to our physicians, our grocers, the laundromat, so on and so forth, if we get out there and share these stories, ultimately it's going to be a conversation that we all have in the general public around society. And the powers that be, the doctors, the nurses, the pharmaceutical companies, they're going to hear us. These guys don't run everything. We do. The problem is only 15% of us are registered to vote, for example. Very few of us actually step into a capitol and meet our representatives or send a letter or have a nice conversation in the hallways or make an appointment with them in their offices. Very few of us actually understand how this system works. What is the DUI bill affecting? If I use a topical and I get tested now and my blood nanogram level is above 5 nanograms, this bill has not passed yet, but if this were the situation and I use topicals, we don't know, because we don't have research, we don't know if this is going to be affecting our nanogram level. We don't know if I don't even know. I don't know what the questions are at this point. So what are some other examples that we can do in relation to maybe the movement? And I say movement because I really don't believe that the cannabis movement is an industry yet. We still have a lot of hurdles to jump over and cross. And there are no boundaries. There's no brick wall. We can get through all of this, folks.
Absolutely. I think that it's a trident approach to getting more studies. At the patient level, patients need to talk to their doctors, get doctors involved in studies. At the medical level, doctors need to start talking to each other, and scientists, specifically colleges that have scientific programs that are needing research studies. This is a perfect blending and meshing. So it's the patient level, the doctor level, and I have to say, regardless if we call it the movement or the industry, at that movement industry level, we have to start having the topical conversation. Smokable therapies are 80 to 90% of the market. Topical therapies, honestly, are about 5 to 3% of the market. It's not the sexiest part about what medical marijuana and cannabis is, but it's such an important opportunity to live a pain-free, highly functioning life. And it works so well with complementary therapies. So at the industry level, at the movement level, center owners need to be well educated on the benefits of topical therapies. They need to educate their bud tenders. The bud tenders need to educate the patients, and then it's that patient-doctor conversation again. So it's really that wheel.
So you bring up an interesting piece of that wheel, and that is the communication between a center owner and yourself, for example. So do you have a packet that you can bring to your centers and give them? It's kind of like maybe like an operations manual so that they can give it to their employees, and their employees can read through it and know, oh, these are all the topicals, these are the oils, and it does this, and this is how I talk to my client as a med tender. How do you approach that? Is that a one-on-one conversation?
It is a one-on-one conversation, and we are available as medicine makers to do that in centers at the bud tender level. Both Deanna and I are cannabis educators. And also the sales and marketing materials that Dixie has put together is very educational, and those are updated on a yearly basis. So in the upcoming months, you'll see some new print material that highlights the topical use of cannabis.
Fantastic. That is really good to hear. And for those of you who want to stay tuned to more information about topicals and suppositories and tinctures and other edibles aside from smokables, please tune in down the road. We're going to have a lot more informational shows relate to these topics on Cannabis Health News Magazine. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. I do want to touch on one big picture that we sort of started to mention, the difference between an industry and a movement. And I'll talk to you about, I think we agree on this one, but we'll share our thoughts about why we see that a certain component has to happen in our industry. And we'll touch on that in just a moment after a word from our sponsors. Welcome back to Cannabis Health News Magazine. We're here with Christie Lunsford from Dixie Elixir, and we're talking about topicals and how they can benefit you. So one of the big things that we're addressing right now is really education. It's communication, it's cooperation. Without cooperation, we can't have education, we can't have the communication. So, and that's really where I come from when I'm looking at this movement, and I refer to it as such. I know that we have businesses and we're professional and we're regulated and so on and so forth, but we still have a lot of boundaries to break down, erode, I'll say. And that is specifically one thing that I really encourage in this industry is that we all work together. There really is no competition at this point. We're still learning about our products. We're still learning about who our audience is, who the patient market is, how to speak to our patient market, what standards may look like. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. So, Christie, there are a couple other people in the industry that do topicals.
Absolutely.
I use another company's product as well, and I speak highly of them too. But what other companies do you see in the industry that are a cooperative or have some sort of cooperative relationship with what they're doing in relation to the botanicals?
In relationship to topical products, there are several other companies that produce either a salve or massage oil or some of those topical components. So there's the Dixie Botanical line, and there's also Apothecana. In fact, James and I speak from time to time about topical remedies, and that it's an interesting cooperation and camaraderie that we have. Mm-hmm. And then I'm also aware of Tincture Bell that's produced down in Colorado Springs.
Mm-hmm. But another nice product.
Yeah, I'm seeing more and more of that in the Denver market and also on the Western Slope. And then the other company that produces topicals is Flower Life that I'm aware of, and I believe
Kelly Moore is that?
Kelly, Kelly is in Boulder. But again, I'm seeing more and more of her products out there.
I understand she's either opened a MIPS or has a MIPS in Denver, so she will be distributing to Denver centers.
Yeah, that explains why I'm seeing so much of her product out there. The nice thing about these companies is when you have more than one topical remedy on the shelf of a center, patients, after they're done with their bud selection, they turn to the edibles, they're looking to see what's new. When they see more than one choice, the light bulb goes on as a patient, and they say, oh, this must be a relevant cannabis medicine, because there's not only one choice, but now there's two choice. And I'm seeing in centers more and more where it's looking more like a high-end apothecary, and there are 3 or even 4 choices there for patients to figure out what product works best for them.
And so you hit on a key point there is choice. Choice of our medicine, choice of how we take care of ourselves, choice of what groups we associate with,
Absolutely.
Choice of how we live our lives and our daily routine. And so the bigger picture here is what you're revealing is we need more choices. We need to see those things on the shelves. And it's kind of funny how that works in our country. The more choices we have, the more legitimacy we give something.
Absolutely.
Not that that's right or wrong, it's just the way it is.
It is.
In this case, it's right. You're absolutely right on. People have different preferences for ingredients. People have different preferences for smell, so on and so forth. I mean, there's so many other variables that start to come into play. And so if you go to Macy's or any of these big box, crazy, waste your money stores, you're going to see 100 different perfumes, right? Not that that's good for you. But it sells stuff. Right. And that's not really what we're trying to do. We're trying to educate people. But you're bringing up that piece that ties in. That's the cooperation. Speaking with James, like you mentioned.
Absolutely. I saw James last at the Normal convention. And
James owns Botanicals?
Botanicals, yeah. Even when we were getting licensed as MIPS, I remember sitting with him in the city of Denver, permitting building, sat next together and discovered we'd both had a background in cosmetics and herbal medicines. And it was nice to know that there was a colleague out there that had the same high standards as I did. Because I've seen other topical companies put product out there, and I no longer see those lines out there. Mm-hmm. So in having choice, in being able to select what products and what we put in and on our bodies and choosing our medicines, we're making a choice with our dollar. And it's so important as a American citizen and as a cannabis consumer that you make good choices.
So you are really good at leading me, I think, here. Choices and using that almighty dollar, using that as an influence.
Absolutely. We vote with our dollars. So
we do everything with our dollars. And of course, that's a separate conversation if you really want to get into the dollar issue. That said, that dollar is something a patient chooses to spend at a center. And so what do you think a patient really should be looking at when they're trying to choose where they want to spend that dollar? Is it that place that you walk into and has that plastic table, plastic chairs, and you go and buy, cannabis and that's it? Or is it something that is more appealing? What aspects do you think really are important to a patient if they are going into one of these shops? You did mention earlier about, having a couple things on the shelf.
So I can't speak for all patients, but I can say what I look for as a patient and as a woman, as a cannabis consumer. I look for a well-lit, safe-looking store. It doesn't have to be fancy. I'm a huge fan of interior design, but it can be a white table as long as it's clean and sanitary. The bed tender or med tender, the person who's assisting you select your product understands what cannabis medicines do and that there's a strain for specific ailments, and then having a well-stocked, it doesn't have to be a lot of product, but having a selection of cannabis consumables, whether that is a drink line, a edible selection, a topical selection, suppositories. There are different kinds of amazing pills and pharmaceutical grade script type products in a capsule that are available as well. So those are things that I look for as a patient, as a woman. Safe, clean, good stock, and education, someone who is knowledgeable about what they're selling. If I go into a shop and they don't understand even the basics of cannabis medicine, it's not someplace I'm going to frequent.
Right. Hey, ma'am, I've got some AK-47 that you can smoke here. If they don't know anything about the THC content or CBD ratios, if they can't pronounce endocannabinoid system or cannabis, you may want to think again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do support those places in terms of if they are interested in learning more, please reach out to us. We are all here, the community. Again, this is a cooperative education and communication opportunity. So we're here, just like with the show, we're here to help everybody. So if you feel that you work at a center and you're not getting enough information out there and you really want to learn more, reach out to Cannabis Health News Magazine, reach out to iCannabisRadio.com, and you could probably get in contact with Christie Lunsford at Dixie Elixir.
Absolutely.
And you can find them online. And what's the website for that?
www.dixieelixirs.com. dubstep.com.
We need some dubstep now. So thank you very much for watching the show this wonderful day that we've had here. And Christie, thank you so much for joining us and hitting on a really important topic about topicals and all the other wonderful stuff that we talked about.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason. It's been a real pleasure. And thanks for the audience as well. If you have any questions about cannabis consumables or specifically Dixie Elixirs, edibles, and botanicals, please don't hesitate to contact us via our website or our Facebook page.
Great. Thanks again, and join us for the next episode of Cannabis Health News Magazine.